Welcome to Home Business TV. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Are you ready to learn how geofencing and other digital marketing and advertising tactics can grow your business? Then let's say hello to Jeff Swartz, CEO of Ethic Advertising Agency. Jeff Swartz, how's it going today?
Good, Richard. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. Jeff Swartz is also an advertising entrepreneur, ad tech creator, and founder of Qujam. Established in 2014, Ethic Advertising delivers hyper-targeted digital advertising solutions. They're ranked among the 50 best agencies in the U.S. Jeff, anything I miss?
No, I think that's good. I appreciate the intro.
How'd you get into the world of advertising?
I actually had an unconventional path compared to most people. I knew I wanted to do this when I was about 20. So I was in college. I had a internship, realized that I wanted to get into advertising and eventually run my own agency someday, and spent 10 years kind of building the skill sets in order to do that at like CBS television and at another ad agency, and then launched Ethic in 2014 and haven't looked back.
Sounds like a good plan executed. Let's jump into the deep end of the digital marketing and advertising pool. What exactly is Geofence Advertising?
Geofence advertising is a form of hyper-targeted, GPS-based actually targeting to identify that somebody's been at a very specific location and then to serve them ads. So when I say specific and I say GPS, you think about, finding your way on Google Maps or on Apple Maps or anything like that. Same kind of technology to identify that you've been in a specific building, a specific location. Accuracy is up to about 16 feet, roughly. So it's very precise in that regards. But then what it does, it says, hey, this person or these people have been at these locations. Let's serve them, depending on what you have set up, banner ads, OTT video ads, video pre-roll ads, digital audio ads, or native advertising. And then it also takes it a step further to not only capture that cell phone normally that went into the geofence, but also other devices connected to it, smart TVs, computers, tablets, other mobile devices, those kind of things.
It's a digital integrated world. Well, how can, small businesses take advantage of geofence technology? I mean, initially what comes to mind is when you're targeting a local audience or a specific local geographic audience or specific audience. This would seem like a really good tool.
Yeah, so if you know where your audience tends to be, and you can actually have a target audience that's based off of geographic footprints, geofencing could kind of be a nice support tool for you. So a lot of people will call it geoconquesting if they want to go after people that have been at their competitor's location. There are some home services, for example, that go after certain neighborhoods or streets as well too. And then it expands even further into event-based geofencing, addressable, which actually can automatically pinpoint addresses of specific residences, or you can even take a list of home addresses and upload it into the system as well too. Small businesses really kind of have two options that are out there to get involved in it. One is to hire an agency or a vendor, a media vendor, to run these systems for you. The other one is to actually run them yourselves. So some of the main platforms, in order to be what we call self-serve, where you're actually running your own campaigns, are pretty in-depth and pretty elaborate. And there's a lot more than just geofencing going on there. And a lot of times they have minimums, such as like $10,000 of ad spend a month.
Right.
That's why we created earlier this year Qujam, though. So it's actually built on the best technology in geofencing, but it's kind of like a Facebook boosted post version of geofencing where anybody should be able to do it. It only does geofencing. It's very simplified, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that can be done with that technology, but does put the control in the hands of small businesses. And the best part is no minimums. You can go on there and run a $50 campaign if you want and everything, and you're in complete control.
So QJam is kind of a way to facilitate it, to simplify it for those that want to get started and kind of take a baby step first and get familiar with it.
take a baby step, or it's even made for people that just don't have the budget in order to have the more expansive technology at
Right.
their fingertips, or people that don't want to have to learn these big demand side platforms and understand kind of what's going on with all the different moving parts as well too. So it's actually applicable for small businesses who is kind of made for, but medium-sized and large businesses as well too, depending on their budget, depending on their goals, depending on what they want to do. So some people do dip their toe in the water with this, and some people will use it for a long time. The one thing that I do like to say about geofencing is it's a nice complement to an overall marketing strategy. I believe everything in advertising, there's not like one silver bullet. But geofencing utilizes, as I mentioned, display ads, digital video ads, digital audio ads. So it's a nice branding awareness. It can get an ROI as well too for businesses, but I highly recommend that there's a search strategy in place, whether it's SEO or SEM, and that there are there's a focus on in the sales funnel or the marketing funnel, focus on the deeper in the funnel stuff so you can convert those leads into more sales.
Well, it's quick. Qujam, you launched it this year, or how long has it been?
Yeah, Qujam. The idea was started about 5 years ago. The development was started about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and then the actual platform itself became live in June of 2023. So it's in recording this at the end of November of 2023. It's only been active for about 5 months or so. But it's actually gotten some really good traction, some really good results. We've had over 200 companies sign up for it as well too, and are leveraging it and everything. So it's been really neat to see it grow, because we did, our agency is the backend provider for geofencing.com, geoconquesting.com. We've had hundreds of geofencing focused conversations, and that's why we created Qujam, because we thought that there was a gap in the market, and we just wanted to provide that opportunity for people that they didn't have the right fit. They didn't have the ability to do it themselves, or they couldn't meet the minimums or didn't want to meet
but
the
what I
minimums.
see, like for people working from home and home-based businesses, it's complicated. And you got so much you've got to cover. And if you can get in on, one place you deal with that helps you do a diversified market advertising campaign, that'll pay big dividends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then, like I said, though, there is, because we do come from an agency side of things, we do believe in a holistic strategy where the branding and the sales tactics have to be on point as well, too, to get the most out of it as well. So, it's one of those things where I think it's a great resource that we created with Qujam that provides something to people that really wanted this. And that's what we're kind of seeing with our initial launch. But at the same time, there's so many other elements that go into actually with brand loyalty and lead generation and those kind of things as well too, that I always like to mention and share with people as well too, because one tool, whether it's Google or Qujam or Facebook or whatever it might be, isn't going to be the end all be all. There's usually some thought process and mix in the strategy in order to get the most out of those tools.
Well, let's quickly cover some of the other digital tools on the marketing and advertising toolbox. What's the latest, you see on the, the foundation of digital advertising, that being display banner ads?
Yeah. So display banner ads, something that can be utilized in the geofencing side of things, but those can be targeted in multiple different ways. You can use targeting based off of people that have been to your website, based off of what people are searching for, what they're reading about, first-party data, third-party data. So the targeting's really evolved, and there's a lot of different opportunities and options out there in order to get in front of people. The effectiveness of banner ads and everything is really creative based though. So depending on the messaging, so we definitely see certain types of incentives working really well. Creatively, we also recommend having big, bold text that is easily readable as well too, and keeping it simple. So the creative is just as much as the mix as the targeting with that, but it also extends into other forms like video and digital audio in what we call programmatic basis, where we're using a lot of this layered targeting and then pumping in a lot of different exchanges or publishers. Just means apps and websites.
Oh,
and
so like
services.
Display banners will still have a good viable future because they're linking into other forms of advertising. And you mentioned one, I wanted to talk about that one next, being digital audio advertising, which I haven't heard really that much about. Is this good more for streaming services, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so when we refer to digital audio, that's going to be like Pandora, Spotify, NPR streaming, iHeart streaming, all of those elements as well too. So, any kind of streaming audio kind of falls into that bucket that has ad inventory as well too. So again, you can layer targeting, you can buy direct, you can buy in more of a programmatic basis where you're pumping in a lot of different avenues and everything. But it's been around for a good bit, but it is a tactic that often gets underutilized as well too. But you're 100% right. There's a place for all of these things. There's even a place for newspapers still, if it's got the right kind of strategy behind it. It's just a matter of how do you use all these things. There's so many opportunities out there, and ensuring that you're getting the right, what we call media mix. You're using the right mix of different tactics that are out there to get the best results.
Yeah. What's your advice on native advertising, where you have ads that fit naturally into online content sources? Sometimes it's getting to the point you can't tell the difference between paid and non-paid content. Do you have any thoughts about native advertising?
Yeah, so the not being able to tell the difference, it makes it hard, but they always have to be accompanied with like an ad or a sponsor. You just kind of have to be aware to kind of look for those as well too. The biggest advice that I have for native is there's really two. The primary one is native is really needs to have a supporting landing page or article that when you click on it, it's actually about what that initial ad is talking about. Top 9 reasons why X, how to do Y and everything. If you just send somebody to your homepage and it's not the article, it's not giving them the value and everything, it's not going to be nearly as effective. And that's really outside of the scope of what native advertising is all about. The other thing that I do want to mention with it as well too is there's different tiers of native advertising. My recommendation is usually to try to partner with a established publisher, which tends to cost a little bit more money. But if you want to have a smaller budget, you end up getting kind of the clickbaity kind of vibe and inventory as well too, where if you partner with a publisher, often they'll house the article on their vetted website and everything as well too. So native is all about validity and making sure that you're bringing value to somebody and not seeming clickbaity or bait and switch kind of advertising,
Right.
which it can easily be if you don't put the thought into it.
Jeff, is it feasible for smaller businesses to use search engine marketing, SEM, to rank high in search results along with pay-per-click? How's that
Yeah,
market?
so SEM and pay-per-click, paying to be at the top of Google, Yahoo, Bing, is highly valuable in for small businesses. It is also can be highly competitive as well too. So the cost per click can vary greatly. The competitive landscape can vary greatly based off of different inventories or different industries, but it's still a viable and valuable resource because you can come up with maybe some really niche keywords just for your industry and your location to ensure that you get to the top of those search engines. There's also additional things. If you're a nonprofit, there's something called Google Grants where you get up to $10,000 worth of free Google AdWords every month as well too. There are Google LSA, which is more for service-based industries like plumbing and HVAC. There's the map side of things as well too. So there's definitely a value to be showing up number one on Google. There's also a value of having branding components as well too. But at the same time, search engine optimization, which is the organic method of showing up at the top of Google, should also have a focus on it as well too. And there should be an analysis of the competitive landscape in that arena to assess where should you spend your time and your money as well too, because there's value to both of those paid and unpaid search results driven components. So there again should be some strategy with it, but there's a lot of value with those lower hanging fruit options, because when people are searching for your product or service, that's usually means that they're deeper in the sales funnel, that they're more likely to convert. So it's a good place to be.
You mentioned one thing I want to pick up on: search engine optimization. So basically, optimizing for search engine to rank higher in search engines, that'll kind of give you a search engine marketing edge, I guess. If you're optimized, you should rank higher then.
Yeah, but there's also an element of you ranking higher than you did yesterday. If you're still on the 16th page of Google, doesn't really do you much good. So it's all about trying
Oh,
to figure out,
right.
how to get to the most visible areas on those things, and having a strategy around the SEO component is very valuable if you have a specific service or product that you want to rank for as well too. The other thing is especially if you talk to a company like, we can get you to number one on Google. Well, great, but for what keyword? If it's my business
Right.
name, that's a lot easier than if it's my service that I'm offering as well too. So having a focus on that is huge. For these viewers, one of the things I like to remind them is it's not all about working on your website when it comes to search engine optimization. If you do a Google search for your particular industry or service or product, and you see that there is a list of the top 20 companies that provide that, or if there's a article about it or something, that you can email them as well too and say, hey, how do I make this list? And everything
Mhm.
as well too. So ensuring that you show up on other publications and other websites and everything is a great, easy strategy instead of trying to get your own website all the way to the top,
Is
which you
that kind of
should
like
still do.
backlinking, getting backlinked to the
Yep.
right content?
Yep. That's
Or
exactly what it is.
okay. Well, um, you note that 30% of online activities are on social media marketing. Any advice for marketing on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter?
Yeah. I mean, there's compared to some other digital advertising options, social media has a bit more of a limited and more watchful targeting. So you can't get as targeted as with other mediums, but it does have a great audience and a captured audience as well too. So that's one that I go back to. The creative really needs to speak to the people and convert them, and it needs to be made for social media in order to get the most out of it as well too. There is an element, depending on the size of your ad budget, of where you should spend money, as well as that your kind of audience as well too, based off of age and different demographics and everything. Because social media expands into, the ones you mentioned, but there's also Reddit and Pinterest and Nextdoor, and there's a wide variety of where people are as well too. So understanding where your audience is and how to speak with them and target them the right way on those mediums is vastly important.
The internal struggle or search to find out where your audience is congregated at. Social media has just made it a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it has, but the other element with that too is somebody who's on Facebook is not on Facebook all day, every day. I'm sure there's some people that are like that,
Yeah.
but people's attention are spread across, their local news site, across Facebook, across, LinkedIn, watching television, both streaming and maybe, cable and maybe broadcast as well too, and everything. Our attention is really fragmented and divided. So there has to be an element of trying to be in the right places, not just the right place and everything. And then that also kind of comes into thinking about your budget. So whether you're a very small business or a very large business, I highly recommend thinking about, when I say budget, your monetary budget of how you can invest dollars, but also your budget of time and allocating time to do certain things as well too. From a lead generation standpoint, a branded standpoint, both have value, so you should budget for both.
I think I just got to highlight something you said there, just like people's attention span. It's just everybody's spread out everywhere and always staring at the phones. How do you grab somebody's attention? It's not like the old days with everybody reading a newspaper and you put a display ad there. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you break through that information overload and clutter?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to do that. So ensuring that you're reaching the right audience, and because there's a Harvard economist that goes back named Harry Dent that says that's a theory called the 1% theory. 1% of any population is interested in any given product or service at any given time. So that audience is out there that's already primed and interested in what you're having to sell and everything. So reaching them is step one. If you reach them and you have a message, you have a product or service that's interesting to them, that's a good indication that they're going to actually convert to you, right? The other thing is, and I mentioned a couple of times, is having creative that resonates with them, but not just creative that resonates, having fresh creative as well too. One of the biggest jumps that we see in responses and results is when we do switch up creative after something's gone a little bit stale for a little bit. So ensuring that your creative is kept up to date on a monthly, every other month, or at the very least quarterly basis is a way to ensure that your ads are going to work a little bit harder for you. And then the final thing is that we see a bit of a jump, if you have the ability to, is entering a new medium, a new vehicle. If you've never been on Facebook and you give it a go, you might notice a little bit of a jump because you're reaching an audience that maybe you never reached before, or an audience that you reached before, but you're doing it in a different way as well too. So mixing things up and don't let anything get too stale is a good strategy. And the whole idea of if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing is not good, because you don't realize that something's broken and everything, because it's never going to be broken.
Yeah, you're just
response
is just kind of dribbling away slowly, and you don't realize it because you're not shaking it up and breaking that information overload. Before we get close to wrapping up, is there anything you wanted to mention on video? I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that, but regarding, pre-roll and good ways to get started with it.
Yeah. So, there's pre-roll, which is going to be like YouTube is a really good example of that. But there's also in the digital space, OTTC TV, stands for over the top and connected TV. That's going to be like your Hulu's, your Roku, your Sling TVs as well too. So there's a lot of different options. And then also social media has video elements as well too. But, getting started with that, there's a lot of vendors, there's a lot of agencies that you can kind of go to and see what their services provide. There's different targeting tactics and different opportunities and different networks that they can kind of buy into. We're pretty much across the board on all of them at Ethic. But asking questions is the best thing that you could do. Figure out how is this going to work for me and everything, but have understanding that the cost to have one display ad be seen versus one OTT video ad be seen is going to be vastly different on a cost per thousand basis or the cost per impression basis, but the impact of video is much greater. Video can tap into emotions. It has movement. It has audio. It can do things that static just can't.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I like to always ask this question. What is one thing a podcast listener should do tomorrow morning to improve his or her digital marketing and advertising?
Yeah. The best thing that they can do in this realm, and honestly, the best thing any business owner can do as well too, for anything that's important in their business, is tomorrow morning, figure out when to designate some time to focus on these things and create a long-term strategy and a long-term plan. Whether it's for their marketing advertising campaign, their overall business, or something else as well too, but finding time, dedicating time, and giving that time to be able to sit down and develop a strategy around it is the best thing that somebody can do, and is also, as I find, one of the things that most people don't find the time to do.
Good advice. You got to take a first step to get organized and put it on your list. Well, Jeff Swartz, we've reached the end of our Geofence Advertising and digital marketing tune-up on today's podcast. Are there other points you'd like to share?
No, just besides that, I hope everybody has a great holiday season. And Richard, thank you so much for having me on.
Jeff Swartz, thank you for joining me today on the Home Business Podcast. To learn more about Jeff Swartz and Ethic Advertising Agency and how they can help you raise the bar in your digital advertising, please visit ethic-ads.com or qujam.com or our podcast website for more information on guests. Thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website, homebusinessmag.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. Please read our book, The Home-Based Business Startup Guide. For more information, visit homebusinessmag.com or homebusinessexpo.com. I'm Richard Anderson saying anchors away. We'll talk with you soon. Until then, make it a great Geofence advertising day. Thank you for watching Home Business TV.